So,
Hi.
hello, I'm here with Paul Mahan of Tanoki. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, Tanoki. It's
Okay, okay.
pretty close.
I was a bit afraid there, to be honest. So I'm here with Paul. Thanks a million for joining me today, Paul.
No worries at all. It's delight.
So, just to get the ball rolling, can you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself? Because Tanoki isn't the only project you're involved in, is that right?
No, it's not. I used to, and I still, which was, funnily enough, started as a musical project back many, many years ago in the MySpace days. And then I kind of slowly migrated to being video and
Yeah.
visuals. So I primarily, day by day, I'm a filmmaker and visual artist. So yeah, that's where like my background is, and then throughout the years I've always just been kind of dabbling with music, so that's kind of the bones of it, really.
So your kind of main field then would be the film and video side of things, but you've kind of pursued music as kind of a side project. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, very fair to say. Music has always been just a little kind of thing to, in a way, get away from thinking about videos and visuals.
Hmm.
Kind of subsequently, after I've made music, I end up then thinking about videos and visuals to go along with the music that I've made. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just a nice little release that's just something so far removed from
Yeah.
video. Well, mildly removed.
So can you go into a bit more detail then and give us a bit of a background into your history with film and video and kind of by extension your history with music as well?
I started off very run and gun, making kind of skate videos, and interestingly enough, I actually went to LIT with a skate video in hand, and I went into a shop. It was called BDS in Limerick back in 2003, four, maybe 3 or 4, and I had asked them guys, could I sell my video in their shop, and as it turns out, then they kind of were like, "Oh wait, hang on, we watched your video. We're not going to sell it, but would you mind maybe making our video with us?" So I ended up making a video with them, and kind of just throughout the years. I mean, I'm very much condensing the whole lot in it, but I just turned from uh, taking jobs, just constantly taking
Okay.
jobs that came my way, and like I didn't really have a really set path or anything. It was more like just see what comes along around every corner and help people out with what they wanted. That was a lot of it.
So you're a freelancer then. Would that be the simplest way of putting it?
Yeah, I'm a freelance filmmaker, yeah, or video or visual artist is,
Okay.
yeah, that's how I categorize myself.
So then with Tanuki, this new band, let's say, how did it get started in its current form? And you've released your first single recently called Loading. How did the whole, I suppose, project come about?
Yeah, so Tanoki started with well, originally with Geppetto, which was the kind of previous
Hmm.
music endeavor that I had, and it just really came out from that, really. Biggest difference really was a few years ago, just getting really stuck into Ableton, like a lot more serious, and just getting a lot more into the actual production side of it, because
Yeah.
previously I had not done the production side as much on the Geppetto stuff. It was always mixed by somebody else, and this time around I just really wanted to just keep experimenting and messing myself, and eventually, as time went on, like maybe a year ago, suggested that maybe I should change the name because it wasn't sounding similar to Geppetto anymore. It was too far removed from the original Geppetto stuff, even though like it still had a collaborator that I had used, or very close friend of mine, Colm O'Queeve, who had been in Geppetto from the very beginning, and he's actually he's going to be on the Tanoki album, but I just felt like it was a different project and it needed a different name. So it's kind of similar esque.
So how would you describe your music as Tanoki, and how would that kind of compare to Geppetto, to be more specific about it, about genre and like?
Um, it's definitely more electronic,
Okay.
and it's way more jazz. way more jazz influenced, way more, um, yeah, way more jazz elements, way more kind of breakbeaty, bit more trip hop. Kind of a surprise to me, to be honest. I actually was mainly just making music, and then every now and again I would upload it onto SoundCloud. And I don't know if many people use SoundCloud out here, but they actually give you like an I guess it comes from an algorithm. They give you what they think your song is in a
Yeah.
hashtag. So they give you like these hashtags, and after a while, I kept getting trip hop and jazz, and I was a bit like, what? That's not what I'm. Is that what I'm making? And I was like, I just really didn't realize what I was actually making. It was more just, yeah, just making music for the fun of it. And then the whole categorization of it, I've always found difficult, especially when the album comes out. It's more understandable that it's harder to define it into a genre because it really does flip around. So from what I've seen in some of the press about loading is like jazz tronic, which I'd never or jazz before, but I guess it's that. Um, and I guess it fits into alt, and it fits into um, just electro as well to a degree, but it's not banging electro. I don't know. Genres are really tough. There's so many
Mm,
things that fit into certain genres, and then when you listen to two tracks that are apparently in the same genre, you
okay.
don't even notice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think that, there's a very, let's say, broad spectrum of things there. So, would you kind of agree then that you were maybe doing your own thing and being a bit experimental and you didn't really know what the name, that there was a name exactly for what you were doing until you started seeing all this trip hop and all this kind of stuff come up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's nail on the head there, really. I just was having fun experimenting, and then
Yeah.
that's apparently what I was making.
Okay.
I definitely wouldn't have set out to make it.
um, I guess, is there any particular artist?
Genres like that are easy sells. That's definitely one thing I find.
I was just going to say, do you think that there's any particular artists or any particular, I suppose, genres that come to mind for you, as being a strong influence, or is it hard to pin down anything specific?
No, there's a few, all right, for sure. One in particular is a guy called Pretty Lights, who weirdly enough isn't that well known over in Europe, but is massive in the States.
Okay.
And he had a one, yeah, it was a really big inspiring thing. Was he had this he has a mini documentary online about the album, a color map of the sun, and it's just the process he went through to make the album was just really intriguing, and I kind of in a way was very inspired by that, but I didn't have like. I did it in a more minimal way, but it was kind of in a similar vein to that, and he's more of a his stuff is a bit more banging, like
Mm,
he doesn't like being called EDM, and it's understandable when you actually see and hear his music. But he often gets lumped in with EDM, but I don't really see him as that either, and he doesn't either himself. But that would be he would be a big one. And then producers like, you know, DJ Shadow, bands like Sun Lux as well, and I think kind of there's always a hint of kind of like cinematic sounds that I love, like cinematic, and then just guitar based bands like the Redneck Manifesto. They would be just name it. Just trying to think off the top of my head of a few that would come to mind that I think were all influences.
yeah.
Although the one influence that I kind of I often look over, and I think most people would look over as well, is music in games. Music in games is huge, like video games, and they're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
such a huge influence from there. And you don't know the artist. I've looked up a few that because I've always been who's soundtracking the games, but I think that's definitely a big one as well.
Okay.
Especially I think in the style of my music. Um, and how it's kind of a little bit freeform from genre
Mm,
is I think it's only in retrospect after listening back now to the album and to songs like Loading that I really do see them as being like part of a game or something. You know, the way that
yeah.
they it kind of keeps chopping and changing and things parts just drop and they don't come back in again. And I really feel like that's kind of almost like how a level in a game might go.
Yeah, okay. So again, like that's a very kind of broad spectrum of things. So would you kind of agree that, you know, um, you're kind of, let's say, chopping and changing all of these different genres and things that you're interested in. I suppose, were you just trying to kind of bring together these different genres that you're interested in and see what happens?
I no, I actually can honestly say I wasn't really. I was just messing. A lot of it was just playing around. Yeah, I very much kind of going along and seeing, oh, what will work next year, and oh, that's kind of a nice, interesting part. Oh, how do I make a part out of that? Like it was in terms of how it was made. Like a lot of the tracks were made. It was just a lot of stuff out on the kind of out on the timeline. Well, actually, not on the, funnily enough, I'm not even sure if it's definitely called a timeline in video editing anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, like all the layers of stuff, and it's a lot of it was just like seeing what works with what and what works with what instrument. And yeah, I don't think I ever really was like, oh, it'd be nice to mash this genre with this genre. It wasn't really. But then certain parts from certain genres really intrigued me. Like
Mm.
doing glitchy drums, I just was like, oh, I'd like to have some glitchy drum parts, and I'd love to have some brass sections and nice piano breakdowns. Oh, I want to remash all these genres. They were just all different parts of genres that I happen to like.
Yeah. So in terms of loading itself, just as an example, um, is there a particular, I suppose, story, let's say, behind your music, or is there a particular, I guess, meaning, for want of a better word, behind any of the songs in particular?
Yeah, the whole album is actually is themed, and it's all themed around technology and how we are evolving with technology. And so all the songs actually really have that theme going through them. And
Okay.
loading in particular. I mean, even the name itself, loading,
Yeah.
is about loading in. And but I kind of when I got Farah involved in the project, I remember just kind of always chatting to her about how we would go about with the lyrics and asking her if she was a robot and how she might sing some stuff if
Mm.
she was from the perspective of a robot. So yeah, as the album comes out, it kind of becomes a little clearer that it's all that's what it's all about.
Okay.
But loading is the intro, even though well, sorry, the first song from it, but there's a couple of instrumental songs on it as well. And again, even though there's nothing hitting you in the head lyrically about the theme, I feel like it's into it because a lot of it was the digital creation of the music,
Yeah.
like how we're all just kind of being sucked into music. We don't know what we're watching. If is that real or is that fake? Are we listening to real instruments here? Are we listening to fake instruments? Is someone playing this? Is that like, is it synthesized, or it's
Mm.
all just a bit of a melting pot of that. So that's kind of where the idea came from, basically.
Okay then. Well, it seems like you have, at this stage at least, a good plan as to where you're going. So I suppose in terms of the album itself, is there any kind of information you can share about it at this point in time, or is it a bit too early to say?
um I think what I said was a lot of information, I guess. Is Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about getting it out. That's kind of one of my main things now. But I don't know when I'm going to get it out. That's the only issue.
Okay.
I Yeah, so I've got the single out, and I'm not really sure whether I'm going to do a few more singles or I'm just going to get the album out. But I feel like I want to kind of get what is to come in the whole album, and then maybe by summertime I'll have the album out. But essentially, it's more of what loading was, and then it it definitely drifts further away as well, like a good bit away from what loading sounds like.
Okay.
But in another avenue that I find really interesting, because like the instrumental songs in it are they get strange, and I'm really proud of them. People, when they do get the album, they can sink into the whole thing and feel it as a cohesive piece, because I do feel like it starts and finishes in two different places.
Right. And I suppose kind of looking beyond that, looking a bit further into the future, do you think that you're going to kind of stick with a similar style to what you have now, or are you going to try something else afterwards?
I think that it will always keep evolving.
Yeah.
The same as what I've just done in that album, and in fact, I've probably got the bones of another album ready, made,
Okay.
like, as in, not the like, I mean literally the skeleton. I've and before I want to start introducing more features to it, and
Hmm.
sending out some stuff to people to see if they'd be willing to work with me on some tracks. But they're in a similar they have a similar thread through it from the first album, and in a way, actually, I do similar that I might potentially kind of bundle them as like it is all part of the same thing, because I don't think I'm finished with the theme of technology either. I just really
Yeah.
I love technology. I've always loved technology, and I just really enjoy kind of having an overall team for a project. And having finished the album, I kind of still felt like I was like, oh, I'm not really done. I think there's way more to explore in this. Um, so I'm just really excited to move forward and do more stuff.
Okay. Fantastic. We're almost out of time, I'm afraid, but
All right, no worries.
just before we finish up, if people are looking online, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Mr. Paul Mahan, and they can find me on Facebook as Tanoki, and they can find me on the website. My main website for like my actual film stuff is Geppetto. Hence, I'm still keeping the Geppetto name.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
But
fantastic. Oh,
primarily, yeah, my direct contact is kind of, oh, I'm Twitter as well, which I barely use, but it's all Mr. Paul Mann. It's a little bit all over the place, I guess, at the moment, because
okay.
I just have this new Tanoki name, and but yeah, that's
Well, yeah, we'll get there.
yeah. Yeah.
So this is Paul, otherwise known as Tanoki. Thanks very much again for joining me, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thanks a million for having me. It's great.
Thank you very much.